Hi guys, welcome to another Tiger JT analysis video for the second team of the Celtic Tigers. But we're in the 4th division of the 4NCL. Just type 4NCL into Google, you'll see all the leagues. Below you can see the link to, well, obviously my YouTube at the moment, but when it scrolls on a little bit further, you'll see the link to the Celtic Tigers webpage. We're trying to do a newsletter after every weekend. We're on a bit of a catch-up. I think Chris is on it now, our brilliant manager. He's definitely done one version because he just sent it through to me today, just to proofread it, and it's very good. It always is, so go there and check that out. It's called Raw, which is obviously very Tigerish, so, you know, check it. It's good. I don't know if you could spell that properly. But anyway, that's a side story. So this is, I'm going to show you my second game of the weekend. I will explain the first game, because if you ever look up on 4NCL, you'll see that it's a very short 14-move draw. And I want to explain it quickly why I took that 14-move draw. Is because on Tuesday gone, so this was Saturday's game, I lost a terrible game. I went back like 2 years in my chess development where I just launched a really stupid, unsound sacrifice when I should just wait, even if my position's not great, and try and outplay my opponent later on. You don't have to be now, which was JT of about 2 years ago. So that actually put me in quite a negative mind frame, and from going quite happy for being on board for the Tigers, I suddenly started thinking, oh damn, yeah, this possibly isn't the best time to be getting 2 really hard games. But anyway, luckily for me, on the Saturday, my opponent played a little bit innocuously. I mean, I didn't want to play his line, so I spent a lot of time trying to sidestep what he was trying to do, and I actually ended up being slightly better when I offered the draw, which he snapped my hand off, which I was really surprised because he was 16, and I thought he might be a bit more of a fighter. But having looked at his game on the second day, he played the Petroff and Castle Queenside, which I'm going to talk about in a second. In the I don't even know what it's called. I want to say it's the Sheriff line, but I don't think it is the Sheriff line. But it's where you play Knight C3, which I'm going to talk about again in a second, as I say. And if you do that, then you're not ambitious at chess. And maybe he was just tired, you know, growing pains at 16, perhaps distracted by girls or boys or whatever floats his boat. So I was happy to take the draw for my own reasons. But that left me for a very clear-headed Saturday, which was great. I got to watch Ireland versus Scotland. That was a really good rugby match. And later on, when I was watching the other guys having really tough games, I was like thinking, well, at least I've got a lot of energy for tomorrow. And I'm over my loss. I think in Russia they say you need to stop the bleeding. So that means just get a drawn result as quickly as possible after a loss. Just to plug up a hole in the dam so it doesn't get worse. Or if we're going to stick to the analogy, I guess you bleed to death, which is a bit dark. But then Russians can be dark, you know. Anyway, God, there's a lot of Russian chat, actually. I've just realised today is going to be a bit of a Russian opening, or the Petroff, as it's called. It's also called the Russian game. Which I looked up my opponent beforehand, and he switched to this. He used to be a Shevnikov Sicilian player, so really sharp. And he's a good player. He's 169 ECF. And he's also 1950 official FIDE rated. We use a lot of conversions in the National League, but he actually is a 1950 and a 169 ECF. So it was he's going to be a tough cookie, and I expected him to, you know, as the higher rated player, to maybe play quite sharp. But then I saw that on the previous day he'd played the Petroff, and I think if you're playing a Petroff one day, it would be quite something to then switch to a Shevnikov the next day. So, and I like the Shevnikov from the white side, so I would have been happy to see that on the board. I don't need to look at it too much. It's just a fun opening for both sides, and you just, as you saw in the World Championship match between Carlsen and Fabiano. So had that happen, I would have been a happy bunny. As I say, I had a lot of energy. Didn't go to bed too late. Only had a couple of pints with the lads when we were going over the games. They're a good bunch as well. I've got to say, this team is amazing. We have a good time. Very supportive of each other. We care, and that's big in team chess. You have to care about your teammates and how they're getting on. There's a lot of mercenaries out there. Anyway, that's a side subject. So, you know, I had a good night's sleep. I had a really nice breakfast in the morning. And then I found out that I'm playing potentially against the Petroff So I thought, well, I'll have a look at that and what lines I can play. Recently, I've had a bit of an opening crisis. If someone plays a particular opening I don't like, I've been avoiding it, even if it meant playing completely a different system that I'm not used to, just to start me thinking from move one and be happy that at least I'm not playing an opening that I don't like. I've mentioned these openings before, so I'm not going to keep telling you about them because you might cotton onto them. You keep playing against me, and okay, the plus side is I'll get better at them, but I just don't want to play against them. And Petroff, funny enough, isn't one I want to avoid. There's a really fun line in it. If I had longer, I would have prepped it a lot better, and that's called the Cochrane Gambit. I'll show you that in a second. But there's a lot of little trappy sidelines as well in the main lines, but there's a really good main line for someone who's like me, and if you're an attacking player, if you feel more happy when you're attacking, there is an attacking line in Petroff, which I'm going to show you. The Cochrane Gambit's just nuts. That's attacking, but it's nuts. This is just a normal attacking opening. I think most of the top GMs, when they have the white side of this, they play knight c3. Again, I don't know if the opening's called the Shirov line or not. I may be just making it up. I know Shirov must have played it at some point because he likes attacking, right? So you're going to see that today. So fingers crossed that you enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed the game. I'm not going to say what the result was yet. But recently, and especially in the 4NCL, every game I've played, okay, apart from that 14-move draw yesterday, the day before, sorry, have been really interesting, and I've used all my time, which I did again in this game, which is only yesterday. This one was yesterday. It's Monday today, and I had the game on Sunday. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the Petroff a little bit as I go through it, because there is a lot to it, and this isn't an opening and analysis video. This is a game analysis video, but I will go through a couple of lines just to show you how well it can be really dull if you don't try hard to be a little bit unbalanced. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So e4, e5. This is your last chance if you really, really want to dodge the Petroff, if you know your opponent plays it. But you have to be happy in the bishop game. So knight f6 here, you can just play d3. And you've avoided the Petroff. So it's like a kind of Joko piano where you've committed to playing d3. You could even, if you still want to be crazy, you can still start going for maybe a Vienna attack. Which, say, I don't know. Oh, you've got the two knights here, so it's a bit risky. But point being, you can play your knight to c3, and at some point you can play f4, which is a completely nutty opening. You probably should know it before you just decide to start doing it. So you can dodge the Petroff quite early doors if you know your opponent's going to play the Petroff. But I wasn't dodging it today. Why should I? I've never really played it properly, had a long time to play against it, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but I wanted to experience what it's like, and I definitely want to try this knight c3 line, which I'll show you shortly. So you take the pawn, black plays d6. If black doesn't play d6, black can actually take this knight. This is like beginner stuff, but if you play queen e2, and very casually they bring their knight back to f6 just to get out of the way, you win the queen. Bare minimum, you win the queen. It's double check, and if they block with a queen, you just take it with a knight. So that would have been a very quick game, and I wouldn't expect a 169 to fall for that. You don't even have to. Even at this point, you can only lose a pawn instead, which is no, not that way. Sorry. But actually, I think you can play that. But so yeah, no, you do play this. Sorry, my bad. Because you take the knight, and then they play d6 because the knight can't move away. Without exposing your queen, so they get the knight back. But you just play d4 and you end up with a pawn, which again is something I'm not even. I know people play this stuff as well, which is weird. It's not a full pawn apparently, because it's like development attack against your pawn's a little bit extended, and if you want to play f4, which is the move that will solid up the position, you've sort of weakened all your dark squares that maybe black can get around the side. So you've got to think about what you're doing, whether you're going to hold on to that pawn. What I mean by that is it's quite easy for him just to play knight out and tap the pawn again. It's tapped by two pieces. It's quite easy to keep building up on it. So you probably have to give the pawn back anyway. You don't win a pawn exactly, but if you give it back when your Bella develops, you know the score. You're not beginners. So yeah, none of this happened, but I'm just showing you what can happen. So the main line is d6. And this is where I was talking about the Cochrane Gambit. So if you're playing the Cochrane Gambit, you just take that pawn and say, ha ha ha, 2 pawns for the knight. Now I'm going to crush you. So king takes and pawn up. Just to show you some quick venom in this, there's so much to this. I think when I last looked at this properly to win some online games, there's 11 different responses for black here, which is crazy. But one of the worst ones is to take this pawn, which is tempting, it's an extra pawn. You're like, yay, great, and a pawn and a piece. But then you just queen check, and you're going to pick this knight up at some point, one way or another. G6 is probably the best defense, but he may try queen e7. I don't want to go into it too much. There's plenty of videos on the Petroff if you want to know. But this is just good for white. But yeah, and at this point in the game, I was like, "Oh, this is my last chance to do it." And I've got to say, I did eyeball this pawn quite a bit, and he started looking at it too. And I thought, if you switch to the Petroff, then you're probably quite a good defender, because you have to know about this line. You can't play the Petroff and not know about it. So the theatrical battle in the Cochrane will be another day. Because as I say, I already picked what I was going to do. I think I'll just like eyeing it up just to give my opponent something to think about before I just drop the knight back. And I'm sure, I don't know if he was relieved or not. I didn't talk to him after the game. I think it was time to go home. You know, at that point, this is a really, really long game, time-wise, not move-wise. So don't worry, it's not going to bore you to death too much. So yeah, no, I was happy to go home when this was over. Gosh, I've got to say, I really suffered in this game towards the end, but I'll talk about that when I get nearer to it. Now black can recapture the pawn. And here, white has a lot of choices. You can play d3, which is a bit weird, but it basically transposes into exchange French. So if you fancy exchange French, you can do it. You've got d4, you've got just c4. They sort of transpose, a lot of these transpose into each other. I think you could probably even play bishop e2 here. There's probably nothing wrong with that either. But the line I've chosen isn't that. Where's this line? And as I say, I don't know if it's the Sheriff line. Someone can correct me on the chat or the comment section below. The point being, if black doesn't take that knight and comes back, you're suddenly ahead in development. You've got 2 pieces out. Both your bishops able to develop quickly. And black may even be waiting another move here just to play d5. So it's got some potential bishop pins and tries to use this square. But the point being, white's getting out a lot quicker than black is. So it would be an edge. So that's why black doesn't go back. And he takes the challenge. Chess tells us to take towards the centre, but this is an opening system that's been proven at top level. You take with the pawn away from the centre, and the point being, you open up your bishop quickly. So now you've got both bishops can move out quickly. So for a Petroff, which is known to be stodgy and boring, this is actually, you're trying to get as quick development as possible. I'm not saying white has any major edge, otherwise everyone would play this. It's just a way to play against it. I think it's very easy to get bogged down in the, oh, I must have an edge as white. No, you just need to have a playable position as white, and that position to be a position you want to be in. It's no good the computer telling you it's 0-0-0 if you hate the position you're in, because it won't be 0-0 for long, because you'll just make a mistake. I was looking for this today. I wanted to, 1, try out this opening. 2, I know if he castles kingside, then we're both going to chuck pawns at each other. And you know what? It's quite funny, considering he chose the Petroff opening. I would be quite surprised if he'd castled kingside in this, because as I mentioned earlier about my opponent I played the previous day, at the same time this was going on, he was playing the black side of this as well, which is just weird. And he castled queenside, which is the really quiet line, because then there's not much pawn rushing and it's fairly symmetrical, and okay, maybe some piece play later. No weaknesses for black, but you know, are you trying to win a game of chess or not? Bishop e7 is just standard. It may go to f6, it may just stay there for a little while. Bishop e3 is just to get out of the way. I want to play queen up and castle queenside as quickly as possible, and then start thinking about which one of the pawns I'm going to push, Gary or Harry. They're both going to get pushed eventually, I'd imagine, get some rooks behind them, and just plough through the side of the board and basically cut his head off. Okay, it's a bit violent, but yeah, you get the idea. Rush him, make him scared if I can, and checkmate him. In the meantime, obviously, like I say, he can get his queenside pieces out, and if he really wants, he can castle queenside, and perhaps it'll be the dull position. So the fact that he castled kingside made me think, why didn't you play the Sicilian? Because then you get a proper counter-attacking opening. But I guess he wanted an attacking opening from a very safe position. I don't know. It seems a bit of an oxymoron. So I play Queen D2. It's mainly to get out of the way of the castle. It's also nice to put some pressure on the D file. Once you've castled, you're also looking at G5 at some point. I don't know if it's going to be because you've got a pawn there and you drop your knight in. It's nice to get your bishop to D3. It can be a little bit exposed there, but you know, it's a decent attacking place. You can see from the arrows that this is a go forward opening or variation in the Petroff. You know, there can be some really dull stuff in the Petroff. Trust me, I actually play the Petroff myself sometimes when I really don't want to feel like I'm under big pressure early doors. So knight c6, just get a piece out. He's also potentially going to be dropping into this square at some point, which is why I delayed my bishop going to d3, because I just didn't want to give him the option to make me trade off that knight, potentially open up the d file, maybe the queens come off. I mean, it's probably okay for white, you know, as long as I'm developed enough. But I didn't want to go that way, so I just castled instead, delayed the white bishop development, and bishop g4. Now this is a slightly strange move, I've got to say. I think personally, the bishop, and I played the black side of this as I've said, belongs on e6. You should be attacking the king, right? You know, you got a free attack on the pawn. You can't take it straight away because say I do something. I know you know this, but I'm just going to do it for visual. If you take this pawn, then it's actually trapped. But even then, you know, you can still try to get some counterplay. It's just probably going to be a bit too slow. Well, it's definitely too slow because your king can just jump over and take it. But, you know, maybe your king's getting a little bit open. But it'll never do it because it's a piece. And at the end of the day, if you run your king back, you should just be a piece up. Or a piece for a pawn. So it's never going to take that. But that is the most active square for the bishop. It's also kind of looking after c4. It's useful doing that. You never know, like I say, this knight. This is why, when I was on the black side of this is what I did with my knight. And I lost the game, but it was a really good, fun game against a guy called Chris Davidson. He's like a 190, 200, and he destroyed me, and which is why I wanted to take the white side of this. I'll say he destroyed me. He's destroyed me eventually. I had my fun too. And obviously, if I get my knight into c4, I can't be doing that badly. But he didn't play bishop e6. He played this, which, to be honest, if you're going to play your bishop here, he's obviously pinned my knight. He wants to just drop his knight in. As I say, I get it. I get his idea. I do get it. You know, you double up on the knight and, you know, swap off pieces and then there's nothing. Which, you know, is fair because if that's what you're aiming for, then that's a good plan. The downside of it is I'm not going to just allow him to play what he wants to play. And two, he's actually starting my pawn rush already. I mean, I know I mentioned h4, but h3 and g4 is just as good. In any sort of opening like this, you get it in Roy Lopez's, you get it in Italian games. You're trying to get your knight into f5. It's a really good attacking piece once it gets there. So, you know, with the g pawn pushed, you're sort of aiming for this plan. And had he taken me, which was the other thing, I mean, I don't mind. Yeah, okay, he doubles my pawns, but now I've got some dynamic conversation for these, definitely, 100%. Okay, they're weak and they're not even that great at being pushed. Maybe Harry can still be pushed. But double Freddy is a bit rubbish. But even here, you just play something, and you've got a choice. You can play bishop d3 still. You can bring this rook over to g1, or you can just bring this rook over to g1 and then put it up onto g6 and bring the other rook over, double up and attack the king. That's pretty much what I want from this opening. So when he just dropped his bishop back, I was like, well, surely when you played bishop g5, you must have been committing to taking my knight. Because this just helps my attack, right? I mean, this move comes without thinking. There are other options here. And I didn't consider this one, but I'm going to just say it because the computer likes it. But it's not a real big difference in the score. This is the difference between when you play what you want to play and what the computer says you should play. So, okay, I'm attacking this bishop. And I guess there must be is there some sort of tactic after he drops back? What's good about that queen there? Now it's saying h4, okay. Oh, you know, actually, I do understand this move now because it makes sense because of what happens in a minute. But I didn't know that far ahead, which is quite amusing actually. It almost feels like the queen shouldn't be here. I don't know why, because I'm thinking that maybe a move is knight plays c6 and I'm wasting my time, but perhaps I have time. And the point being, the queen's controlling this square on e4, and you'll see why that's relevant very shortly. Yeah, I mean, okay, I know he does have to do something on this bishop. Maybe now would be the time to take here. But anyway, sorry, this is definitely a sideline. And the reason being, because I played g4, which is also very tempting, and he just dropped this bishop back. Here, I'd love to just get on with the attack and just push. And it's probably okay, but you've got to watch out. And this is why I was saying the queen was defending this square from there, which makes sense, because now the bishop is quite awkward for me, actually. I mean, it's one of those do you, don't you situations. So I can't play bishop here because there's problems of knight coming in of a double attack. I'll just quickly put it on the board, why not? I'm only showing one game today, so you know, something like knight e5, and I'm already under a little bit of pressure, and I'm not sure if the pieces come off how good any sort of attack's going to be, and maybe I'm losing the h-pawn. And that's what I'm tripping around about. I'm saying you can win the h-pawn here, so say if I play something that's a little bit... This was just to break the pin against the rook, but say I played bishop here. He could take... Actually, no, taking just seems bad. I mean, this would be good for me. I can't imagine this not working out for me. And if he ever took here, I've probably got just g5, right? Yeah, that just... Goodbye, bishop. No, that would be happy days. So, what's the computer saying about this then? So, yeah, this is definitely the best move. And then I think I would probably play bishop e2. If I play bishop e2 and he plays knight in, what happens now? Now I have to... Do I have to take... I have to take the knight on e5. So I give him up the exchange. Is that right? Bishop takes h1. Now where's the knight going? And I'll take the f7 pawn. Okay. Well, I don't like this. I just don't like it. And there's no need for me to go to this. I could see his bishop was coming in if I played the pawn up. Like I say, I wasn't nervous about losing the pawn. I definitely saw that too, but I've got time to do things here. I know about this, and I know about it being lined up with that. So I start my plan to stop his plan, if that makes sense. You have to do this sometimes in chess. It's all very nice just chucking your pawns up the board, but every now and then you should probably think, why has my opponent done that? So for every pawn move you make, you leave some space behind or some squares behind. So just be aware. So I just played bishop e2 already to meet bishop e4, which I think he plays actually. Yeah, plays bishop e4, and I can meet this with just moving the rook. So there's no pins. Knight e5 is no longer everything coming off the board. It's never a bad thing to have a rook on the g file. At some point, as I said, I would love to push these pawns until I checkmate him. You know, you can push pawns and they do die from it. It's a real thing. And the rook's just, like I say, all my pieces are out of pins. If he tries to do what he does, which is he wants to swap pieces, now I don't have to swap pieces. Now I can just play knight d4. Remember what I said earlier? g4, part of the reason, it's not just to play g5, which is obviously tempting too, but I now have an outpost to drop this really strong knight into, which is why my opponent's next move is a real big surprise. He should be, if anything, just... well, I don't know. You can do a couple of things here. You can either just get on with your own attack, which is probably something you should do, seeing as I'm attacking you, or do the what I'm trying to do, which is the same thing. You know, like b5, and then get on with it again. Just some sort of counter-attacking plan. I mean, you can even be a little bit defensive. You can play rook e8 and maybe drop your bishop back if you're feeling really cagey. But you definitely don't do what my opponent did. Which was a little bit of a red rag to a bull, and played c5. Because c5, one, pushes my knight to where it wants to go anyway, because it's not going to come back to f3, is it? It's not going to happen. And it's not doing anything over on b5. In fact, I'm just helping him. He just kick it, and then suddenly all the pawns coming down the board. And I don't know if that's what he thought was going to happen. But one of the worst things about this is he's actually weakened d6. Quite drastically. I mean, the computer's only saying I'm 0.7 up here. But real temperature, if we do actual temperature and real temperature, you know, real feel like they do for the weather, computer says 0.7 up, but I feel like I'm a pawn up, at least a pawn, and better than a pawn, it's initiative, and I love initiative, which you know, if someone plays a Petroff against you, the chance of getting an initiative isn't as high as you'd think it would be. Now, already, he can't really take this really strong knight, because I'm just going to take back with a G-pawn, and then suddenly I've got a raging attack. I mean, this is great. I'm already there. I mean, F6 can maybe be manufactured at some point. Is actually saying get the king out of the way as quickly as possible here, the computer. And yeah, this is not going to be a massive brainstorm of what I need to do to win this game. I mean, even just chucking up, I can chuck both pawns up. I mean, it's a good knight, but I can destabilise it straight away. Where's it going? It hasn't got that many squares. So we push the piece away. Where's it going to go? Come back to here to try and get to F6 maybe. And then I can just get on with it. I've got lots of choices, and you're saying why aren't you being specific? Because I've got too many. But yeah, I can just double up rooks. I can play just bishop here, just start causing him trouble on his queen side. The point being, these pawns are all out the way and giving me a load of active ranks, files and diagonals. So though they're a bit of a mess, it doesn't really matter if I lose them, because it'll just give me even more attacks. And the pure agrees, I'm like +2 here. So happy days. Which is why he didn't take it. So he tried this instead. Which is a little bit of a cheapo. I mean, if I take it, then of course I lose the exchange. So that would be stupid. So I'm not going to take it. I think he was hoping maybe. I don't really get this too much. He's trying to be active, which is good. But I think he wants bishop takes, and if I have to take back with a queen, maybe the knight can get into c4 potentially. But again, what's it really doing there? But sorry. I'm like, well, you're putting a piece out. I don't mind if you take me. In fact, now there's no forks anywhere anyway. And not only am I threatening just to take this bishop, but I'm starting my plan of doubling up rooks, and then I'll get on with. Because this knight's not unstable yet, it's not being attacked. I can play this and then follow up with Charge of the Light Brigade, and I don't know which one, probably the G6 pawn, and bust open the king with double rooks and say I'm coming to get you. So it'd be a nice easy attacking plan. So that forces him to take, which is all good for me. So I take back. He plays Rook E8, which is funny because that was the right move before playing C5. Totally missing a snap move, which you're probably seeing on the board. I saw what was going to happen at this point. No, at this point, I was like, well, after Queen takes, I do have a little bit of a cheapo one. So have a look here. After Rook G3, Paul Steve D. Or YouTube video as this is. I just like ripping off the Ginger GM every now and then. Great guy. Watch all his stuff. Actually, watch his recent title Tuesday. It's brilliant. He goes 5 out of 5, and it's very entertaining. I think he actually wants to take off Grishchuk's head, but that's another story, and you need to go and watch that video. It's very funny. So from here, I set up the cheapo. So he has to defend against the cheapo. He does not. He plays Rook E8. Totally missing this. Can't take, obviously, because I'll nab his queen. Queen's on pre. So he tries this, and I think he just forgot I can just come back with a bishop. Because if I move the king, then I'm actually in a little bit of trouble. I mean, I wouldn't do this, but say I move my king back, then you've got lots of little problems. I quite like this. This looks good. He's got knight takes. This is still good for me, actually. Yeah, maybe I'll see in a ghost. Maybe I could just have moved, actually. I was a little bit concerned about this because it's attacking the queen and the bishop at the same time. But I've got the same maneuver. I could just bring the bishop back. But what I played was absolutely fine too. So I saw a little bit of a ghost there, but it was okay. Because if you see a ghost, as long as you see a move that's okay for you afterwards, then it's all good. Because, you know, that ghost doesn't matter because I know the move I'm going to play is absolutely fine. So it's funny enough the best move, which is great. That always makes me happy. So being scared of the ghost actually helped me play a better move. But I could have just moved the king out the way. And here was really strange because I just imagined he would just take the bishop and be like, well, okay, I'm a pawn down. And I was going to take with the rook because I've got such an active central commanding heavy pieces. I'm just very happy bunny here. But that didn't happen. He didn't take. He played something a bit strange. He played d5 and I really didn't get this because I'm not being funny, but I know you guys are screaming. This is a big move, right? Which I sat there for a little while saying, does this really win me a piece? And it doesn't. It wins me 2 pieces for the rook. But I've already won a little bit of material, right? So this is happy days. I'm already a pawn up from the missing bishop c5. So f4 straight in. This bit was played quite rapidly by both of us. I take, he takes, I take, he takes. Now all I've got to do is break the pin on my queen. Happy days. I also want to, at some point, you know, you've got to think about this stuff ahead. You want to get your knight in there, you want your bishop here, you want somehow your queen in here, and you want checkmate. And it's just about which order you do your job in. So it's his move, obviously. So he decided to attack the A pawn, which is fair enough. And here I've actually got 2 choices. I've got the move I played, which I think is better, but I could have just won the D pawn, just a little bit more material. Because it's like, where do you put that rook? I guess here, because maybe you're trying to swing over and try some sort of checkmating attack. I don't know. I'll just take the material. And I'm just better. But no, I want checkmate. That was, you know, this game's going well for me. I want to continue with the tempo if I can. So I play bishop e4. This doesn't win the d pawn, but my bishop's on a beautiful diagonal. It's going to cause him a lot of trouble. Now, don't get me wrong, and I don't normally do this. I don't normally show games where I'm winning quite nicely. I tend to show them when they're, you know, they're tough all the way through. But I want to explain that winning 1 games is actually really tough. And you've seen me blow it up before. I've had massive attacks and just sacked my queen for nothing. So, you know, I want to show you that these fears are still alive, even in this position of you know, something suddenly happening, and I'll talk you through it as they come up. So rook e6, as I say, it's the right move. You swing your rook back over here, you try and mate me. I don't know, maybe you're chucking down the b pawn, whatever. You're getting something, but the good news is for me is that I get to attack too. First of all, I stop winning that pawn. I don't have to give that pawn away for nothing. Now it feels a bit of a waste, him bringing the rook over, because even if you push the b pawn, this useful pawn on c3 means I've got great control on b4. So he doubles up rooks, which, you know, makes sense. My back rank's not totally covered yet, so perhaps he can drop something in at some point. Who knows? But for now, I'm not fearful of anything. I'm just going to get my pieces into what I consider good squares. It doesn't work straight away, but obviously queen here and in checkmate. Got to be a bit careful with just the rook blocking. So already get my that doesn't happen. Already getting my pieces into squares where, you know, it won't matter. I don't have to worry about what he's doing if I can just checkmate him. So he's brought his queen in. He's eyeing this square here. And you're like, well, that doesn't matter, but it does actually. Funny enough, later on. So already my alarms are going off a tiny bit here because, as I say, my back rank isn't that strong. Remember what's happening here. I want this knight to be either here or here, and I want my queen here. I want the arrows to stay. Come on, I want my queen here, my knight here, and here. So this is where my opponent's starting to play, you know, tricksy stuff. And now suddenly, if I do that, then this square here is weak, as is this square here. So I've got 2 squares that I mean, this one's covered by the knight at the moment, but if these pieces go away, these 2 squares become vulnerable. And remember, he's got a fairly good entrance into my position, let's put it that way. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to not go for the checkmate, but I'm suddenly thinking, hang on a minute, maybe this is not going to be as easy as I thought. But I go for it anyway, because at the same time, he's got to respond to my threats first, right? I'm threatening just to win an exchange here. So, what are you going to do? Now, obviously, when I played this move, I've taken into account that he's got these squares. So he plays the move. that you're probably all thinking, oh, what happens if he plays that? Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. If I take... No, sorry. Say I don't... Say I go for the checkmate. I just want to show you how you got to be... Even at these points, you've got to be really careful. So I go for mate, yeah? And he just takes my rook. And I go, oh, that's great. Your king's covering that. And then suddenly, queen comes in. Remember what I said about e2? Check. King moves. And this one is unfortunately game over. Which, you know, I've suffered from before. So you've got to keep your concentration. It's not as straightforward as you think. Can't just get on and checkmate him if he checkmates you, right? So rook e1's a fair try. So you got to think to yourself, okay, what am I going to do here? Obviously, I can't allow that. I can't allow him to take me. Not like that. So I just bring my queen back. It doesn't matter. I'm still attacking this pawn. This is the fun thing about when you've got a lot of time. I'm attacking that pawn with 2 pieces. I'm also attacking this pawn. So if the queens come off and 1 pair of rooks, I'm going to have 2 minor pieces against that rook. Okay, he may clean up these 2 pawns, but I'm going to win all of these with various knight forky tricks where I come back, come here, go here, check, win this one. You know, I'm just better. So I'm happy for the queens to come off here. Okay, I'm not mating him anymore, but you know what? On the card trip on the way up, on board 1, a very good player, said I get a pawn up, swap everything and win. That's not me, but I'd love to be like that. But he was talking in my ear when this happened. I'm like, not really talking in my ear, that's cheating. But in my head, I'm like, okay, wait, yeah, he's right. Swap queens. It's just a one ending. Why am I making this difficult for myself? The most embarrassing thing for me here would be to get checkmated. But he plays a sneaky move. I'm like, well, that can't be any good. I could just take that. I mean, I have to take it, obviously. It's check and he's winning my queen. But I've got 2 choices, right? So he keeps giving me little decisions to make. I can take with a queen or I can take with a king. Initially, it feels like you just want to take with a king. And the reason you want to take with a king is because the queens are still going to come off, right? And your king is then going to still cover this square. So there's no rook coming in to e7 or anything like that. So taking with a king is actually quite tempting. And then you start calculating. He hasn't played that for no reason. If I take this rook with the king, he actually has a really, really strong attack of just taking on the b pawn. Because, funny enough, my king doesn't have that many squares. And just to show you just an example of how lack of squares I have, I'm trying to think of a reasonable move here that I might play in accident. Let's say, alright, I'd never do this, but say I took this. Just to illustrate a point. Dush, check. Oh, okay, I've got a square. Oh, no, I don't have a square because, oh dear, checkmate. And again, I've got a little bit of, you know, oh, I thought this game was easy. It's won, right? But it's not. There's still little tricks, which is why you don't give up, even in losing positions. It's just losing. You're not lost. So I could easily, like, just lose concentration and walk into a mate. But to avoid all that, we just take with the queen. But I just thought, at that point, you know, we're nearing time control. This is move 29. And by time control, I mean the time's nearly run out. That's what I meant. It wasn't near time control. I've still got 11 moves to make, and I've got probably half an hour. And, you know, I know and the horrible thing is, I know I've won this game if I just play it through and swap everything off. So he does well to keep his threats alive. Now, the downside of taking with the queen is the queen's no longer floating around the king ready for a checkmate. And in fact, he's really passive here, which he tries to keep by bringing the rook in. But here, you know, it just shows you that chess, it is a tough game. Right, I'm thinking, okay, well, that rook's only defended by that queen. So I'm already trying to think of cheap moves like, oh, if I could ever move that queen somewhere, you know, queen here and then this pawn up. Where's he going to go? Oh, he's still got a6, you know. So no quick win for me yet, though I'm desperate for a quick win. It's so silly. Like I've just said many times, all I need to do is swap off stuff and just have a one ending. I don't need to do any of these superficial, cheapy moves trying to win a rook. It's not necessary. So I played knight takes. I'm like, well, I'm going to start hoovering up material. You have no threat. You have no immediate threat, I should say. There's no danger on c2, which is the one you have to worry about. The only threat in this whole position is if he magically gets his rook here and his rook here and pins that queen. And later on, if the queen gets on a slightly different diagonal, maybe he can get the same sort of threats here or here. But at the moment, everything's covered. This is a beautiful dark square bishop. But it's a trick in the position, and I was aware of it when I took this pawn here. So I was like, okay, I can take this one. And I knew what he was going to play, which he played. He's going to try and hoover up these pawns. And to be fair, if he wins these 2 pawns and gets the queens off, then perhaps these 2 pawns are actually really dangerous. Maybe they're hard to stop with the rook against the knight and the bishop. So it's not dead for him. He stayed optimistic. So I bring my knight back, centralise the knight, but also threaten up a cheapo attack. Because I'm covering all the squares around the king currently. So if I can ever get my queen to the back rank, it's checkmate. And it's just a question of how do I get my queen to that back rank. Which is harder than you think, funny enough. So I tried. Oh, sorry, it's his move, yeah. So he took the pawn. Fair enough. The good news for me now is I don't have to worry about him somehow getting his queen into e2 and mating me this way. You know, if the rook was still here. So, you know, 1 threat's gone. Okay, I lost a pawn, but 1 threat's gone. But unfortunately, tactically, this check works. And it is a cheap check, but it doesn't matter. You should take the material where you can. So he has to move his king here. And I can take this pawn, because if he takes that knight, what's my very next response? Exactly. Bishop g7 check, and I win his queen. So that's an immune knight, and now I've won his d pawn too. So I'm getting really happy again. I'm like, all the material's coming off the board. This is a piece of cake. Yeah, I'm trying not to get cocky, but you know, it's hard. You know, I'm hoovering up material. I've still got more pieces than him. Why shouldn't I be confident here? So he plays Queen c4, and he just wants to. Obviously, if he can sneak in through the back door, I don't know exactly how or what sort of counterplay he's going to get, but maybe there's checks, and I have to be a bit careful of side checks. Maybe my queen's going to get caught out or something. You know, so I understand his move. He's not threatening the knight, and this is key. This took me a little while to realise that even though he's re-threatening the knight, even though he was already threatening it for over here, they still can't take it because of the check here. But it took me a little while to realise that. It's quite funny. Just because he moved his queen into a different square, he still couldn't take my knight. But anyway, I got over it eventually. And I played a quiet move in this position, funny enough, but it really does stop all of his threats. I mean, what I'm really suffering for, as I mentioned before, is that at some point, potentially, he can get his rook and skewer me, and my king doesn't have too many squares. And as I say, he's already threatening to come through on the back door. Once I've realised that he can't take that knight, even though he's moved his queen somewhere, this move seems pretty obvious, but b3. Right, where's the queen going to go? He's still not going to take the knight. I know I'm banging on about something obvious, but when you're playing chess, you get paranoid about these things. Not only is this giving my queen an escape square, I actually love my knight here. It's doing a really great job. It's got lots of potential later on to maybe come back to f6 or whatever, but I want it to be stable there. So after the queen moves, I'm going to follow up with c4, which my opponent actually pulled a face out, which I found quite amusing. Because here, after c4, and trust me, I worked this out because you got to be a little bit calm when you're calculating stuff, and I worked it out from here. It's not only just to stabilise this knight. I am actually allowing a check, and you got to realise that I knew that his best square was c6, and that there's a check on h6, and that then there's rook here. But you got to not panic about these things. You know, as long as you've worked out. You know, imagine the queen's here, and I'm losing my queen, basically. Though, technically, I could possibly bring the bishop back to defend, but then I think he's just got queen here, actually. Funny enough. Does that work? No. Maybe it's no good. Maybe I always have bishop g3, g1, but my bishop's doing a great job where it is. I don't want it to suddenly be here as a defensive piece. This will become clear very shortly. So I play b3. I play c4. And he checks me. And I'm like, great. I'm going to go here. Now, he's all happy because, I mean, to be fair, as I say, I've already got, if I really, really need, I've got bishop g1. So he plays this quickly. As though like, I've got you. Because obviously, if I move my queen, then suddenly he's got counterplay again. maybe it's not enough, but you know, I have to be a little bit careful. I can go the wrong way and get mated for one. I think that's the point. You have to just keep creating chances. But the point is, I don't have to allow any of this activity. Because what I've worked out, this is not blowing my own trumpet. I was actually not feeling that I was winning this. It's quite amusing. Is I've got a lovely little in-between move. And it's funny, sometimes it's hard to move a piece off a square where it's already really good. But the point is this. After I've got this check, I've freed up this square. Probably with check, depending on where he puts his king. Because remember what I said earlier, if I could ever get a check on the back rank, it's just game over. Like no counterplay, no nothing. So bishop check. You can't block with a queen, so if the king comes into the centre of the board, then I'm going to get queen e2 check, and you know, the ball's rolling. I'm suddenly attacking your very exposed king with 3 pieces. You're probably wondering, why am I explaining all this? Well, you'll see in a minute, because I'm going to set you a little task very shortly. So queen g7, and I get my queen d4. It's no longer getting attacked by the rook. My attack's coming. He can't block with the queen. If I've got to walk the king, which is just going to lead to mate. I think it's actually mate in 1 if he walks the king. Yeah, so king down would be mate here. So he has to play f6, which he does. And I just bring my knight back, threatening a simple fork and win your queen. So he played queen f3. Now, I'm on, this is actually move 39, so I've got ages. I've got 15 minutes at least on my clock, plus the very next move I make is going to be move 40, and that could be a check or whatever I like, and I'll get an extra 50 minutes. Now he just moved his queen away from his king, so I know what you're thinking. You're thinking there must be a checkmate here, and there is a checkmate. Is it actually a mate in 7? And I sat there for, well, not too long, because I only had 15 minutes to make the time control. I sat there for most of that, 14 minutes. I always had a backup move in my head, which was just this check, because it can't be bad. His king's not really going anywhere, and I'm going to, but I wanted to try and work out to mate, let's put it that way. And as I say, it's mate in 7 here. And I was racking my brain, and there's a reason why I'm telling you this. And I'm like, oh, it must be that. I'm actually getting stressed out. It's so stupid, you know. I'm in a dead 1 position. I'm actually stressing myself out because I'm like, oh, my teammates are watching. I've got to find the mate. You know, this is going to be spectacular. You know, I had a bit of a draw yesterday, but today it's gone very well. And you know, my attacks come through. I saw the little cheapos that he had. I'm gonna win. But I want to win the best way. You know what? That is the wrong attitude completely. You don't need to win the best way. You don't need to win the best way at all. And this dawned on me when I had like 2 minutes left and I'm stressing out and everything. This is a 1 position. As long as I don't do something really dumb like I've done before and just drop a queen for nothing, it's 1. I'll just hoover up all his material and then we'll swap off and it's a 1 game. You know, obviously it'd be lovely to spot the mate in 7 here, which I'm sure you're still trying to work out. But it's not necessary. Just play a move for once. Don't lose on time. So that was the first thing. So I stopped that and I said I couldn't see the mate in 7. It's now mate in 8. So, you know, made it slightly harder. I will give the mate in 7 right at the end. So, you know, feel free to have paused the video a little bit back and see it yourself. Mates in 7, you should be able to see him. But, you know what? I couldn't see it. So I checked him. I'm like, okay, let's just win this game. Let's just win this. It's going to be much harder for him to defend this and watch out for knight forks and everything else. And that's my point. This is my practical lesson that I want to push to you guys. Is sometimes you don't need to win by checkmate. You just need to win by hoovering up material until your opponent can't take it anymore and just resigns. So he fights on. He moves his king to the only square that doesn't mate straight away. So I start building up on this pawn. It's a target. I can bring my knight in next. My queen's going to come in. Let's just play simple chess. He's got to defend, so let's just make him defend. I am going to speed up now because we are pretty much at the end of the game. So he defends the pawn in advance. He's also possibly trying to play rook here. I've got to be a little bit careful of premature knight moves because potentially, not really, but potentially I could end up pinning some of my pieces, so I have to be a little bit careful. And I don't want to leave my king too much. You know, at some point when I've moved that knight away, I'm no longer defending the c pawn. You know, slight nerves, but nothing massive. Even here, I could just swap queens and I'm probably better, but there's no need to do that yet. I can hoover up some material first. So I work my queen in. There's other moves, of course there are. There's lots of moves, but one of my friends had told me this recently. If you're in a good position and you can't find a quick crushing win, just improve your piece by 1 square. Just improve it. Just improve. It doesn't have to be by 1 square, but just this queen's better here because I'm always eyeing this one up. I've now introduced a check here. If I get a check there, there's only 1 square for him to go, and then there's suddenly potentially mates. If I can get 1 more check, which I can with the knight, they actually have to give up the queen if I get this queen check in. So you know, I'm just putting the pressure on, a little bit more pressure. Okay, so he sees it, so he moves his king. A little bit more pressure. I'm still threatening no good move. Just queen check here's a good move. So, you know, little pressure. You know, what are you going to do next? Let him hang himself. Okay, so he tries to, you know, he could... even here, it's kind of horrible in one way. Even if he swaps the rook for the knight and the bishop, I'm still winning that queen ending. I'm just, though, and we've had this before, London Chess Classic, I have been stalemated. Stalemate trick, sorry, when I'm 2 pawns up in queen ending, so I didn't really want to swap into a queen ending. I don't have to. As I say, I'm just going to hoover up material. Where are you going to go? Forced. Your king has to move to the rook file. I win another pawn. I'm starting to not worry about the queen ending so much now. King moves, and in coup de grace, 1 more check. Where's that king going? You know, it probably best that he maybe runs to the H file. It doesn't really matter. It actually plays the computer first choice move here, but I don't think it is. I think you run away a little bit more. There's no instant win, but I'm just going to hoover up more material. That's the whole point of the check. He blocks, and I just take the queen now. And you're like, oh, you're swapping queens? Yeah, but obviously there's a cheapo at the end of it. I'll leave you to work out what happens after he takes the queen. And that was the end of the game, and finally my opponent resigned. But I just want to say that even in 1 positions where, you know, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who's lost 1 games. You know what? Just, you don't have to stress out too much. If you've got a way to win some more material until the position's just crushing, as long as you're not hanging your king, just get on with it. You don't need to find 7 move mates. You know, it's quite tough, and I will show that quickly now because it is a nice little mate. But I was really trying to break my brain trying to find it because I knew it was there. I mean, you know, your chess intuition just goes off. So this is the mate in 7. Just for those going, oh, I knew it. So it's queen d8, followed by whatever he likes. Computer actually wants to... It's only a mate in 7 because you sack the rook, which is always a nice sign when a computer does that. He probably has to sack his queen too. Yeah, he does. Wicked. So he tries queen f1 check, and you'll see why very shortly. So knight takes. F5, trying to make some space. And this is, do you know what I mean? When computers do this, it's annoying, right? Because you're just sitting at the board, and I could end this game with no stress whatsoever, no maybe sudden last second mates. It's just over. Has to move a pawn. Finally, the queen comes in. King goes to h7, and then this is Shakma. So yeah, so you try doing that over a board when you really don't need to. Maybe I'll be better at tactics one day and I'll be able to do that. But like, I'm not there, obviously not. And I think the moral of this story is literally you just gotta switch your mind again. Just say, hey, you know what? I'm winning anyway, so I've just gotta win this game. Put it in the bag. The teams, unfortunately, and I feel kind of bad for the first day because I took my early draw. We drew the first match, so my draw was relevant, which is a shame. So obviously, if I'd known it was going that way, I would have pushed for a win. And unfortunately, even though I won that game, we only drew that match too. We were up on some other boards, but it didn't work out, unfortunately. There was some great chess played across all boards. I've got to say, some of the games were more interesting than that. And I hope that people in my team will submit so I can actually analyse some of their games. Because they look like a lot of fun. That's one thing about our team. We play interesting chess. There's no denying it. But yeah, so that was a great weekend. I look forward to the next one. We've got a bit of a gap. There's not another weekend for the 4th division until April. The first team will be playing in March. So maybe I'll cover a couple of their games. It depends. I think I'm actually away when they play. But if I'm not, then I'll try and cover some of their games. But thanks for watching the video. If anything else that you can take away from this, then you've got a little bit more knowledge about the Petroff. And also, you know, when you're winning in a position, though you are winning, just watch out for little sneaky couple of move checkmates that can come your way. I mean, because that's how you swindle your opponents, so it happens both ways. You just got to stay vigilant. And yeah, I'll do another video soon. So thanks guys, thanks for watching.